Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unfiltered Finance with Ron and John, where two old friends, one a lawyer, one a generalist, try to uncover and instill some insight into financial concepts, legal concepts, things that are on everyone's mind, reading about in a very understandable and raw way. Today we're talking to Tanya Salati, who is a member of a firmly fixed member of the Gen Z generation. And as mid-Gen Xers, Ron and I are really, really interested in the sort of delta that seems to exist between Gen X and Boomers and Gen Z. And we'll talk today a little bit about how much of that is real, how much of that is just things that have been happening since the dawn of man. Tanya,
dawn of humankind. I want to clarify that. Dawn of humankind.
Fair enough. No, good. That's good. That's a key difference. Is I don't
like the patriarchy, baby.
And Tanya, in fairness, is a friend, is someone that we know, but she's kindly agreed to come on. And Tanya, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're currently working on, and we'll dive into some of these social, financial, legal, and other potential differences that our generations have.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for having me. And I will start with, I was born and raised in Bulgaria, and then I moved to the United States for college. And then I went to Arizona State, where I got my degree in finance and real estate. And then I got my master's at the University of Miami in finance again. And then after that, I started my career at Skybridge Capital, where I was fundraising for the funds at Skybridge Capital. And I was doing that for about 2 years. And then after that, I realized that I don't want to be a portfolio manager anymore, because that was originally the plan after I graduated college. And then I talked to Anthony and I was like, hey, listen, this is not for me. Is there something else that you think I could do? So then I switched into SALT, which is like a global conference. And I was doing business development there. I was there for about a year and a half. And then just like every other Gen Z, I realized that having one job 9 to 5 is not for me. And I'm more like, so after Skybridge, I moved to SALT, and I was doing, I was working with other firms. We were consulting a few firms, and I was more on the business development side. But then I realized that I don't want to work in an office 9 to 5 because, every day I went into work, I would be very efficient because I like to get my things done very fast and not wait for them. And then I will be done by the time it's like 2 or 3, and then I have capacity for more. And I would always like do extra work. But then I realized that I wanted to kind of like be my own boss. And I know it sounds very cliche and very Gen Z, but then I opened my own entity and I started consulting for SALT. And then I was able that way to go and consult for other firms because, I was doing all of my work that was given to me, but it was just through like my own consulting vehicle. So I opened my own LLC. And frankly, to be honest, it's also cheaper for like the employer because they don't have to pay health benefits for you anymore. When they give your salary, I think like 30 or 40% goes into taxes on their end. And then I'm receiving 30 or 40% less. But now it's just like an expense because I just send them an invoice. So that's kind of when I realized that for me, the better model to work is to have my own LLC and then still do the same work that I was doing before. But this is allowing me to work with other companies as well. And it's allowing me to kind of like diverse in like a few firms. That way I can keep learning and just be diversified.
I want to highlight one thing, and it's interesting. I didn't realize until it came out of your mouth. I understand that is exactly how Gen Z is stereotyped, but I think people either have had very different experiences than I have myself, or that it's a bullshit stereotype, and I'll explain why. I was the exact same way until I turned 30. I had a job at the SEC, and then every 2 years or so, I would switch jobs, and I never felt that I fit in. And I never felt appreciated, and I didn't like my role in the world. And I founded Sadis, the law firm at which I've been working now for 29 years, at the age of 30. So I can really, as you're saying it, and I know that's a stereotype, I think it's more the entrepreneurial path, and that every entrepreneur, theoretically, that has a little bit of Gen Z in them saying, does this make sense? Like, I know this is rote, and this is what everybody before me seems as the key word, seems to have done, but that's not my dream. And so I wouldn't call yourself a Gen Z for that behavior. I'd call yourself an entrepreneur.
So Tanya, totally agree. I'm kind of curious though, like how do you handle things like insurance? like the benefits of working for a company, right? Of getting full W-2 employment. That's been set at like the social contract for a long time. So as an independent contractor, absolutely agree. It's more efficient from a tax perspective. One could argue it's maybe a little more interesting because you get to do different projects. But how do you handle like traditional stuff like insurance? You don't have to get into like details about your money, but like I'm just kind of just generally curious, like how do you handle it?
Well, I have dual citizenship and I do have my insurance here. So I pay my insurance, outside of my work. I pay it on my own. I have like the lowest plan, I believe, just because I spend a lot of my time back in Europe, in Bulgaria, where I have my other citizenship. And pretty much everything I do, because all of the doctors I've seen are from when I was a baby. So like I know all of them, and like I would like to do all of my things in Bulgaria. So everything I've done medically or like surgically, I would do it in Bulgaria just because I trust the doctors there better. Not because in America the doctors are bad, but just because I've seen those doctors since I was like a little kid. And the cost there is so much cheaper. So for me, like in America, like I haven't had to go and pay like huge amounts of dollars for my medical bills because I like a deductible of like $500 or like $1,000, I'm not sure. So I just pay it separately on my own. And I don't, yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
If you're going to continue that line, that's fine. I was going to ask her more how it feels to be an immigrant in her, I imagine, early 20s on up in the American workforce and society. And does she think she looks at the world differently because she was born in Bulgaria? And what's the difference between her and many of the people around her that have been here for many generations? And the backdrop is I'm a first generation American. I'm the only person in my family born in the US. So I feel sensitive to that issue.
Yeah, well, I moved here when I was 17 and I did 2 years of high school just so I can learn English because I barely spoke English when I first came. And I was in Colorado in high school because that's where my family lives. I was made a lot of fun because of my accent. So like going into college, I was very hesitant about going to college in America. But my mom, which I'm very grateful for, she kept pushing me for. She was like, just try it out for a semester. And going into college, I was very insecure because of my English. But when I went to ASU, like I went through the whole sorority thing, everything else. I was very involved at the university. And then like, I would like barely speak at the beginning because I was very afraid and insecure about my accent. But then as I started speaking, people loved it. And I realized this was a high school issue, but I got so much PTSD from high school and from like being made fun of my accent and barely speaking English that I was going to like a speech person trying to get rid of my accent. That's why now it's not as thick as it used to be. But going into college, that was like the only thing, because then I thought about the workplace and I was like, I don't want to have an accent at the workforce because, I don't want to be made fun of. But then I realized that having an accent is not something to be made fun of. It was just like a high school thing. So now, honestly, I wish I could go back and take my accent back. But that was kind of like the transition at first. I didn't love it, but of course it was high school. I'm sure everybody had a very unpleasant high school experience, or most of us. And now, like when I'm looking between like me and my peers, I see a lot of things and I accept a lot of things, unless my peers. And I think it's because, and I like to call this the third culture kid. I was born and raised in Bulgaria, but my parents are both Persians. They're from Iran. They immigrated when they were 23. So, I have their perspective and I have the Bulgarian perspective, and then I have the American perspective. And I like to travel the world a lot. So I've seen a lot, and I have like a lot of like other countries' perspectives. So now when there is like an issue, especially in politics, and when they say something, I'm like, okay, like this is this way, but then we're not looking at from the other side of the issue. So I think this has like allowed me to look at problems in like from multiple perspectives and maybe not be judgmental and just be acceptable.
Well, maybe you appreciate things more.
I do. Yes.
Tanya, your comment about accents was really interesting because it's actually very familiar. It's one way we're very similar from our generation. So I don't speak Italian, even though my parents are Italian. The reason I don't speak Italian is as a child, because I lived in a house where everyone was speaking Italian. If I spoke Italian, as children naturally pick up language, I would get punished. I remember my mother screaming, "Tutto americano, you're American, you're American. We came here to be American." Because back then, particularly if you had an Italian accent, you were considered low class. And the whole point of immigrating was that I would be American.
It was to assimilate.
It's amazing how in one generation. Now, I have 2 daughters, and if they don't speak 5 languages by 10, you're guilty of child abuse. Right. So and having an accent is exotic and interesting and connotes, intelligence. Because if I hear someone with an accent, I'm not thinking, wow, this person has lower education. I'm thinking they must know multiple languages. How smart are they? It shifted dramatically in one generation. So I was a bit surprised to hear that you got shit in high school for having an accent. I thought those days were over.
Do you think that's when it shifted? Because was.
John, pause for 1 second. John's daughters are pre-junior high and pre-high school. I literally just had this conversation with my kid's mother 2 days ago. Girls torture girls, especially horrifically in high school. And it is something that you have no clue about. I have barely any more clue about it than you do, just because I've been around it to some small degree. And that PTSD that Tanya is referring to follows you post-college, where you don't even realize the effect it's had on your behavior. My mom sounded like Dr. Ruth. My parents are father left Vienna during the Holocaust, mother, brother, and sister born in Israel. My parents spoke 6 languages at home. People would make fun of. My uncle wouldn't speak Hebrew with me because he hated my accent, whereas my cousins always thought it was cute. I speak Hebrew, but it was traumatic for me. It affected my life, where I dropped out of sports because my teammates would make fun of my mother when they were carpooling. And it really, really upset me. So it's very traumatic, John. Like, it really goes to the core of who you are. You feel like you don't fit in and something's wrong with you, and it makes you want to disconnect.
Okay, so Tanya, what do you think about that?
I mean, I completely agree. And I feel like when you're in high school, you don't really have that mental strength that you can push through because you don't really know that much. But for me in high school, like, I would just go home and cry and complain about it. But now if something like this happens to me, I would be like, okay, like, your problem, not my problem. I'm living my own life. I'm doing whatever I want. If you don't like it, that's fine. And then I would just mute you if you're just like a hater. But then when you're in high school, it's very hard to have this mindset. And I don't think it's even possible. I mean, if it is, this is great, but it wasn't possible for me because you're just like 14, 13, 12. What do you know? Not that much. But I was lucky because my parents pushed me, and every time I didn't want to do something, they're like, well, you have to do it. You have no other choice. So I'm used to growing up and hearing no, but I don't think that's the case with a lot of my peers. So when they hear no in the real world life, then they just go like, I don't know, they just become very immature and don't act like the way they should. So I think, right? Yeah,
that's what our generation, we're being told about your generation. It's the participation trophy generation. It's, the generation that didn't have any obstacles placed in front of them. Whenever I hear that stuff though, Tanya, I got to be honest, like I always get very cynical because I feel like every generation, I remember when like boomers were saying that about millennials. They were like, oh, they don't work hard. And I was like, wait a second, millennials like Mark Zuckerberg created more wealth in this country than anyone ever. They were notorious for pulling all night. They worked differently. So I'm just it's very interesting. You're saying that a lot of what you're saying about you growing up resonates with how I felt growing up. And so I wonder how much of that is just people getting older and shitting on the prior generation, and how much of that is real. What do you think?
I had different circumstances growing up because my mom was born and raised in a very conservative, like traditional family in Iran. So like, but then she didn't like that approach. So she tried to like adjust it to the European approach, but then she was kind of like in the middle. So, I think it's a little bit of like a specific case for me. But I completely agree. I feel like if you keep hearing yes when you're growing up, then like at the end of the day, like when you grow up, like when you're in your 20s, you cannot go through without hearing no. So I think a lot of it is from like becoming like in your early days. And I don't know how much I agree because millennials are very hardworking. While Gen Z, I would say it, are less hardworking than millennials. I would admit that. At least that's like in my experience. But at the end of the day, we're the product of what you guys raised up. And everybody loves to hate on us. But then at the end of the day, we're the product of a changing world. And then the people that are complaining about us are the people that raised us. So that's kind of the one thing I don't understand. And then my mom...
With one caveat, sorry to interrupt you. When we grew up, there was no social media.
Right.
And social media has had a dramatic effect on your life, more so than it has on John and I. And times are ever evolving. I would say the same thing with our parents' generation, we probably were raised in an environment to them which was far more luxurious than what they experienced. And completely agree. There's some ownership that needs to be taken by the seniors, but it's really bridging the gap. So in an effort to bridge the gap, I imagine there are people out there listening to you that want to understand what triggered your forming your LLC, what keeps you up at night about running this business. Do you have any partners? Do you have any employees? Do you have any consultants? What are your long-term plans? Or is this a temporary stop?
Yeah, well, I'll be brutally honest in my response. So I am very grateful for Anthony and for working at Skybridge. But when I first started there, I was so immature. I don't even know how everybody around me was able to stand me, because I was so immature in my approach when I was addressing problems, which if Anthony's listening to this, thank you so much. I thank him every day.
Give us an example. Looking back, give us an example of something you cringe at now and say, how did I?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why, when I see people that are like that, I'm like, okay, you'll get there one day. You just have to go through it. So, I was having a lot of problems, and I thought my problems were external. They were my job. I was blaming it on absolutely everything but myself. And then, it came to the point where I was just sick of myself, and I couldn't I just hated it myself because I was just blaming everything. So then after a few months, I started taking accountability and looking at my actions. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm doing things wrong. And I was doing things wrong for sure. So I started adjusting them. And then I just started going into this mode where I was exploring what I like and what I don't like. I thought I wanted to be a portfolio manager. I was studying for the CFA for about 1.5 years, and then I realized that's not what I want to do. And I was I don't know what I want to do. So I started doing 20 different things. And now I do 15 different things, no different. But, I was just doing different things, and I was working where I could add value. And there were a few firms that approached me and that wanted to work with me. But I had specific criteria. I was hey, I'll work as a consultant and I can do this, this, and this. If you don't like it, then maybe find somebody else. A lot of the firms didn't work out. A lot of the firms didn't like the terms. So that's totally fine with me. But some of them like them, and that's why I'm working with some of them. I don't have any employees. If to answer your question, I just work on my own. And it's just something that I'm doing right now until I figure out what's next, which I think I know what's next. But I'm doing this. I'm enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of traveling. All of the firms that I'm working with are kind of in the similar industry, which is finance / Web3 / crypto. And I enjoy it. It's great. But I'm hoping that within the next 3 to 4 years, I can get into politics. I'm really passionate about that. And I have a newsletter that I write about a lot politics. And more specifically, I want to go into foreign affairs, not something specific that's within the country.
Can you describe the types of services you're providing so that the viewers have a sense of
Yes. Yeah, so a lot of it is business development, reaching out to people because I already have an existing network that I could reach out to. Other things are social media strategies. I write a lot of blogs for some companies, reaching out to new companies, and just partnerships as well.
What I'm hearing, Ron, I'm not sure what you're hearing. What I'm hearing is a very sophisticated, fundamental rethinking of the relationship between employee and company. And I think we were taught, my parents were taught to be loyal to the company because the company be loyal to you. My father still has a pension, and my father still has he was a longshoreman, and he still has fantastic insurance. They'll get a death benefit when they die. Those days are gone. And I think what we consider to be sort of disrespect or lack of loyalty on behalf of Tanya's generation is, quite frankly, her generation realizing these companies don't give a shit about us. They replace us in a second.
Sorry to interrupt there. I'm not sure I necessarily agree, because if you look at our behaviors too, you started your own businesses, right, that you provide your services through, John. I founded a law firm from scratch. I had 30,000 in business when I started it, and my twins were 6 months old, and they just turned 29 on this past Friday. So you and I didn't buy into it. I think you and I both, and you have to reset your camera because you froze for a sec, but you and I both have had the experience where we felt thrown under the bus by a prior employer, and that was a very critical point in both of our lives, where on some level we said, you know what, I don't trust the system. I need to be in control of my destiny. I was with you when you went through that moment, and that was a paradigm shift that you went through. I went through it at 30. So that's why I'm saying it's not a Gen Z. I think it's myopic for society to think that. I think it's more the entrepreneurial route, and that it's gained steam through social media, through greater awareness, through communication of emotions. It's, we live in a society where most of my friends who raise their children, we listen to the kids far more than I recall being listened to when I was a child. And it wasn't my parents' fault. My dad came to the United States with $100 in his pocket, and he lived on a Red Cross camp from the age of 12 for a period of time without his parents. So they didn't have any role models. And it's interesting, Tanya, because I have this, it cracks me up, and sometimes I tell my kids to grow up. They'll blame me for patterns that they picked up that I engage in. And it's like, no, you're an independent, capable thinking person. You might have seen it, but you have the choice, once you're aware, to not engage in that behavior. But I understand why we're defining it as Gen Z, but I'm really curious, what's driving your desire about getting into politics? What's the emotion? What's keeping you up at night about the current situation? And I can tell you with me, the ethnic cleansing in the Sudan, China's rounding up Muslims, what's going on in Iran, what's going on in Gaza. I mean, of all people, you have a Persian background. So it's very confusing to me what's going on in Iran. But really, what's driving your desire to transition from business to politics?
I come from a very entrepreneurial family. My parents are divorced. My mom has a business. My stepdad has a business. My dad has a business. My stepmom has a business. So I think that was kind of like, no, they're not clients of mine. I don't want to work with them. I want to do my own thing. So that's something that I've been like very straightforward. But I think that's where I got the entrepreneurial approach. And then as I was working and as I thought I wanted to be a portfolio manager, but then that changed to something else and then it changed to something else, I was like, okay, like what does truly make me happy when I do it? And then it's helping people and it's helping resolving conflicts, because I think I have very good intuition and I can like always sense like when there is like a problem or like how to go about it. So I think like from there, I was like, okay, like what can I do with that? And then I started reading more. As you mentioned, there's been a lot of wars going on around the world. And especially being from Bulgaria, we're in the middle, like we're in between Ukraine and Russia, and then we're between Gaza and Israel. So that was something that I was like, okay, like is it safe to be here? Because I was buying a property there and I just like kind of was like looking at my risks. And I was like, okay, I think it's safe for now. And then I just started getting deeper into the war because I come from Persian family. I speak Farsi, but at first, like growing up, I was a little bit embarrassed to say that my parents were from Iran because of like the stereotype that people get from people from Iran. And as the war started happening, I started learning more about the history and I started diving deeper and deeper. And I think that's when I started like looking into politics as a potential path, but just like learning the history and understanding it and like, okay, like you can't say like this is someone's land. Like we're not in the 1800s. We should not kill people over land or over something else. And I started like to get deeper and deeper. And then like everything ended up at politics, back at politics, absolutely everything. And, I just think that like living in 2025, we should not have wars at all because we're not in the 1800s. We're not in the 1600s. And now wars are being fought differently with drones and technology. And it's just, I don't know, it's very heartbreaking seeing all of those like people like being taken as hostages or like on the other end being killed. And I don't think it's fair. So I think that's kind of that's kind of how I was born into like the politics idea, because as I was looking more and more into the issues, I realized that everything ends up back at politics. And, this may sound a little bit crazy, but I hope that one day I can get to politics and solve all of those issues.
Tanya, right now, what do you think? Your friend, I'll use your friend. I know you're not the ambassador for all Gen Z, but I'm kind of curious. Like amongst your peers that you know, what's the reaction to the word woke currently, right now? Is that a negative thing, a positive thing, neutral? It's become this sort of key barometer of the culture war. I find it fascinating that people get emotional about it. How do you, if somebody called you woke right now, how would you feel about that?
I would just laugh and go about my day because I don't think I'm woke. I actually had a few people like block me on Instagram and send me like a very nasty message before blocking me because I made like a newsletter about like the whole woke culture and the whole identity politics culture and how it's like hurting us. And I had like some girls like literally go and block me. But then before that, they just made sure that they sent me a nasty message. And I was like, all right. So that's like some of the audience. And then I would say like most of my closer circle, they don't really think of the woke culture. Like they're like more like, okay, the woke culture is what kind of brought us down. Like we need to figure it out. So like they're not really into the woke culture. And you know, honestly, if somebody calls me woke, I would just laugh because I know that I'm the farthest thing away from being woke.
Your social media presence, you're out there. Is that a means to an end for you? Is that, hey, I want to be in politics. I'm going to need a following. I'm going to need a platform. Because it appears, again, the stereotype for Gen X boomers, for Gen Z, is that it's almost a tick, a compulsion for your generation that you need, you know, the obvious joke is like, did you even have dinner if you didn't post it to Instagram? Like that sort of element of it. So how do you think about putting yourself out there on social media? And do you think about the risks that we perceive? Does that even matter to you? Or do you think that we're over, or that your parents' generation and your uncle's generation, maybe where we are, is too obsessed with the risks or perceived risk associated with being out there on social media?
You know, that's a very interesting question because when I was in college, I never did social media, unlike my friends that now have millions of followers because of that exact thought. I was like, okay, how is this going to affect my career, especially with the fact that I wanted to go into finance at the time? So I never posted anything. All of my social accounts were private. And then, you know, after I stopped working at Skybridge and I moved to Salt, I didn't have my licenses anymore. So I knew that I could go out and post more because when I had this, when you have your FINRA licenses, there's like a lot of restrictions. So, and then like I was very hesitant on posting because I was like, I don't know how this is going to be like reflected from other people. I don't know if this is going to hurt me in like, you know, in the future. But then I thought about it and I was like, okay, like I wanted to start a podcast at a time and I still want to work on a podcast, but I'm just like narrowing it down and like figuring out the logistics of it. And then I realized, I was like, why would I want to be on a podcast? Why would I want to be on politics? And then it's because I wanted to like express my opinions on like how to solve problems. And I was like, okay, if that's what I want to do, I can literally go ahead and do it right now. And I can post a TikTok or I can post a YouTube video or I can post like whatever it is on social media. So why not just start from now? And then I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing, but I'm just like doing it on my own platform. I'm not doing it on like, I don't know, the White House platform or like whatever it is. So now like I just express my thoughts and like if there is like a problem that I think I know how to like go about it, I will write about it, I'll make a TikTok about it, and then I'll publish it. And at the end of the day, I don't know if it's going to affect me in the long term, but everything I post is like what I truly mean and what I truly believe in. And when facts change, my opinion also changes on certain topics. And I'm not afraid of changing my opinion. So, you know, if somebody doesn't like it and doesn't want to work with me because of like my writings and me expressing my opinion, I think that's their own problem because I think we can agree to disagree.
But back to my point, so why? Like you just kind of implicitly acknowledge some of the risk, right? By putting yourself out there, by definition, 50% of people are going to disagree with you. So I guess what we're struggling with, my generation struggle with, is so there's risks. You acknowledge there's risks. You could mess up and say something that you don't really mean. Someone could take a clip and take you out of context. There's all these risks. And I guess what my generation struggles with is, unless your goal is, I want to monetize my views, I want to become an influencer and make money off of the views, and therefore there's a mathematical relationship between views and money. Unless that's my goal, why would you take on those risks? What are you getting if your goal isn't, I just want to be famous and monetize views?
Well, she was saying, though, if you don't mind, I'm going to tweak this a little. She has expressed that she wants to affect change. So she wants to share her viewpoint, wants to affect change. What she's sort of missed in between is she is trying to influence people to listen to her ideas because that's the only way to effectuate change. So I imagine...
Is that not right, Tanya?
What was that?
What do you think?
In a way, yes.
That sounds right. What's her goal here?
Yeah, in a way, I would agree with Ron, but at the same time, a lot of the topics if you go on my TikTok, a lot of the topics I'm discussing are like just political, like, and more like geopolitics, not so much specifically to like the United States or like just problems that are like.
So what's the most recent one you discussed?
It was like a few days ago, but I think it was something interesting, which,
Okay.
hold on, let me see.
But that is really interesting right there. You don't remember because you're not putting as much thought. Yeah, no, that's fascinating because again, my generation is so concerned with the idea of putting stuff out that I can't imagine talking to somebody above 35 and saying, what was the topic of the last video you did, and them not knowing. This is a very natural thing.
But I think here's one of the things, John, one of the other things from, I don't know where the dividing line, and it's not exclusive to an age group, but it's more common to an age group. There's a greater fear of being canceled. There's a greater fear of, I don't understand how the world's going to react to it. And so there's a hesitancy to post. There's a hesitancy to communicate unless it's perfect, unless you're concerned that you're not going to offend somebody. I think there's more of that with age and less of that with youth. And I think that existed for when we were in our 20s and when our parents were in their 20s. You know, the saying, youth is wasted on the young.
I also learned from the best, Anthony Scaramucci. He doesn't care about what people say about him. And I know Anthony, and I know this is not the person that the media is like portraying him. And I was like, you know what? The people around me know who I am. So I'm not worried if I get canceled or whatever happens because I have my family, I have my friends. The people around me know me. So if they believe it, then they don't really know me. And I don't want to be surrounded by people like that. But I think like learning from Anthony and just seeing like how good of a person it is and how bad the media is like portraying him, I was like, okay, like the media is always going to go against you, or like someone's always going to want to cancel you or do something that's like anti you. So that's when I was like, I will go ahead and I'll do it. And if I get canceled, I get canceled. That's totally fine with me.
Tanya, are you your authentic self when you post, or do you put on a bit of a character? Whether because you think it's more interesting or because you want to protect yourself, or whatever. Like when you watch yourself, when you watch your posts, is like you said, Anthony's different. We all know Anthony very well. Anthony's different from what when he's on stage versus when he's off. I think we all are naturally. Do you find yourself that you and your generation are more authentic when you post, or is it the same?
I think I'm fully being me, but I will tell you this, like looking back 3 years ago when I was in college, that was not me. I was not being authentic. I was just like hopping on like a trend and doing like what everybody else was doing. And I think I truly became authentic as soon as I started posting because I was expressing my own thoughts and I wasn't worried about anyone. You know, what do they think? What does she think? What does he think? Because I'm posting it on my social media and it's going out there to everybody out there. I think like I became authentic as soon as I started posting.
Do you get disappointed if you post something and it doesn't get a lot of views, or is it the act of doing it that's therapeutic for you, or just, is it a result of the success in terms of views, or is it you do it for the sake of doing it?
If I see like 300 views and like not 3,000, I'm not the happiest person, but it doesn't matter to me. I don't care because like it's like, okay, I'm sitting in a room and 300 people are watching me. That's a lot of people. If you go to a conference and if 300 people are in a room, that's a lot of people. So like even if it's 52, like if you get 50 views, like if you can sit out there and like 50 people are listening to you, you're someone. Like you must be someone that people are like listening to and like you're famous. So that's kind of how I look at it. I'm like, okay, like even if it's like 50 people that watch my video, I don't have 50 people, I have more than that. But even if it's like, you know, a lower number, it's totally fine because if I was in a room and there was like that many people, I would be like, wow, I feel like I have something important to say.
We talked about your background. What are your views on cryptocurrencies and the prior SEC's position versus what the expectation that regulation is going to change or evolve and become more liberal as it relates to crypto? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. Well, recently I got into meme coins because I've been talking about it, but I never actually traded them. And I've been trading over the past weekend on meme coins, which it's very interesting. I love it. But I like crypto. What I don't like about it is how institutionalized it became because, you know, as a Gen Z, and that's kind of what my generation would say, and I also agree with it, is like we created crypto like just because we didn't want it to really be in the government and we wanted to be on our own control. And now like it's fully institutionalized. It's in the government. There's like so many, I think North Carolina yesterday proposed a Bitcoin reserve as well. So at this point, it has turned into the same thing as like the US dollar, but it's digitally and like on the blockchain. So because I work on like in an industry where we do real estate transactions, at first a lot of people were using it because of like tax benefits or whatever it is. But now like I think crypto is being followed more strictly than like your cash is. So, on this end, I think that it didn't do what it was supposed to be doing, but then at the same time, it's also doing so many other things that are not directly like between Bitcoin, but like on layer 3 or like layer 2, there's a lot of interesting projects on that. So that's what I like about it. But yeah.
You also said you like meme coins, right? So let's just dive into that for a second. So how do you think
I like the money in it.
Are they entertainment for you? Are they investment? How do you think about meme coins?
I think of it as like the money making. Like I don't, they're very interesting because like every second you have a new meme coin. I just got Phantom like last week or 2 weeks ago and got into it. And I've made a lot of money, but then I feel bad because like I know other people are losing money because I'm making money, but that's just how the world is. Like it's the same thing if I invest into the stock market as well.
Do you think of meme coins as an investment option for generating wealth? Right, that's how you
no. It's like a short-term gambling, in my opinion. It's just like you gotta figure out how to do it the right way.
I mean, so you know the internal debate in crypto, and it's complicated, but I'll sum it up very quickly. Which is, there's a camp that believes meme coins are evil. They're bad. They're purely speculative. There's no value. They're worse than they're not even gambling. They're like unlicensed gambling. Like they're very, very, very bad. They're bad for society. They're bad for crypto. The other argument is you guys are all being old fools when you say that, because the speculative, yes, they're speculative, but there's an entertainment factor and they're onboarding people. They're getting people comfortable with crypto. And yeah, fine, it's gambling, it's speculative, but people are just playing around with fun money. It's not a big deal. It's like going to Atlantic City and losing $25 in the slot machines. As long as you're having fun, it's net beneficial to crypto. Those are the two basic camps right now. Which one do you fall in?
Okay, I wasn't born back then, or maybe I was, but I was just like a baby. The pink sheets, isn't this like the same concept of like when I watched the Wolf of Wall Street, like I heard it and I was like, this is exactly the same thing that was happening. It's just like in a different way, isn't it?
But you're touching on one of the other concerns from the regulatory perspective, or the paternalistic, is that retail is going to get slaughtered. And there's plenty of people that are touching it and trading it. They view it as an investment and that it's being manipulated. I mean, the New York Times just had a whole article about Trump's coin. And
isn't the stock market manipulated though?
There was a video I just watched where somebody was on what was like a 60-minute show, might have been 60 minutes, talking about how the stock market is controlled by the people controlling like the computers. Yeah, by the high frequency traders. Yeah, there are arguments all the way through.
That's kind of where I'm standing up on that topic as well, because it's just those institutions, the same thing. But then when normal people are doing it, and when normal people are normal people is not the right word, but like when people that are not like CEOs of like top 500 companies, when they're doing it, then it's an issue and it's gambling. But when like corporations are doing it or hedge funds are doing it, it's not an issue. So, and like this is the only way for someone that doesn't have that is not coming from a wealthy family. I think this is like one of the very few ways in today's world to them to like become to a point where they have like wealth and they can invest into actual stocks. Because like if you're graduating college, you don't really have like $50,000 to put in your portfolio, but you'd probably have like $10 and like you can hope that your meme coin's going to go up like crazy. And that's kind of how you're going to make money.
Do you think about saving? Like traditional financial advice, right? So my 10-year-old daughter, I taught her about compound interest because it's a superpower when you're very young, right? You understand the math, right? And that's how we were taught growing up, is like, get your paycheck, take 20% out, put it in the bank right away, let it compound over your lifetime, maybe invest it in indexes. Do you think anyone in your generation is they're gambling, they're having fun, maybe I hit it big with a meme coin, but I've also got this sort of like tried and true plan. I'm trusting in the system to some degree that the money is going to compound and be there. Does that exist at all anymore? Or is that just a foreign way of thinking?
So all of my friends have 401ks and they invest like their max in there. And this is like a hot take from me, but I don't believe in it. I don't have a 401k and I never want to put money in there because I think that I have my knowledge to go and invest myself, and I just don't believe in 401k accounts. So I personally invest. Every month I allocate like certain investment and I put it into like my Robinhood account or like my Coinbase account or whatever it is, a certain amount, and then like other certain amount like I put into like a high yield savings account, and then the other I just spend. But you
buy individual stocks. You're picking your own stocks.
And more like option calls, but I would occasionally buy some stocks as well. So this works better for me. I know how to do it, and I just don't think it's worth going to a financial advisor, especially in 2025, and paying them so much money when you can get all that information online and you can educate yourself online.
Have you like kept track of your performance, and can you honestly say, let's say over the last 3 to 5 years, that you've beat, let's say, typical S&P index?
I think I'm like, well, not S&P index. If I like take the last 3 years for sure. Well, maybe I have. Let me tell you. I think I was like up 48% since like 3 years ago. That's only on my stock account. That doesn't include my cryptos and stuff.
So why do you not want to be a portfolio manager? What was the realization?
I don't want to be sitting behind a computer like 18 hours a day and just do that. Like, that's just not my personality and it's not for me. It's very interesting. But then also a different part of me was like, when I realized how the stock market works, because I was very like, I thought the stock market worked completely different, free markets, you know. But then once I got into the industry and I saw like how like trading and everything else is like kind of like structured, that's when I was like, okay, it doesn't really make sense for me to do this anymore, because I wanted to do it for completely different reasons. It's not like you live in the 2000s, you're evaluating a company, you have to go to like its factory, check everything, if it's going well or not. Now it's just like, oh, technicality and trading.
Putting aside for a second, you're right. I think if you just invested in the S&P over the last 3 years, you'd be up a bit more than 48%. It's still impressive. And we can have a discussion about how much risk is in that portfolio, yada, yada, yada. But the bottom line is that's impressive. I think you'd admit, though, that most people, not just your generation, most people, 95% of people, probably could not replicate excess alpha over indexes. And so do you think that your generation maybe is overconfident in their ability, or do you think that maybe I'm wrong, maybe they actually have more ability than maybe my generation to do this on their own?
Or maybe to ask, what do you think's changed?
Yeah, I don't think they're incapable. I think they're just impatient. If they invest, they're going to want to see the result right away, but they're not going to, because they have to wait. So I don't think it's them like not being smart enough, because again, you can literally go on the internet and figure out where to invest and where not to. It's just like a little bit of thought and a little bit of work if you wanted to do it. I think it's more about the impatience, not so much about the knowledge for them. Because when we do something, we want it right away. We don't want to wait. We don't want to wait like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So I think it's the impatience in Gen Z.
I love your confidence, Tanya, especially because you've worked for a fund of funds. You know that 90 some odd % of professional investors don't beat the S&P. You know that, right? And yet you seem really confident that the average person with just internet research can pick stocks better than a Morningstar high-rated or Vanguard mutual fund. I'm going to push back on you on this. Where is this confidence coming from? You know the numbers. So what am I missing here? You
know, I don't go and evaluate every company I invest in, like company by company, because that's a lot of work. I don't want to go and do a DCF model on like the whole company. I don't have the time for that. So I simply have a Seeking Alpha subscriptions, and I have found like the, groups that I like and that I think are like writing really good analysis and reports on companies. So that's kind of where I focus, and that's kind of where I get my reports on like data that I want to analyze. And then also like I've been investing a lot in commodities like uranium, steel, which from yesterday's tariffs proposal from Trump, I think I'm going to be up this morning. I haven't checked my account. But I invest kind of like where I see value. I never got on the NVIDIA trends. I never invested there because I didn't believe in it. Maybe that's why I'm up only 46 or 8% over the past 3 years, because I didn't invest in NVIDIA. But I invest only in things I understand and in things that make sense to me, and in things that I can see the value. Okay, like there is a lack of uranium because like there is like wars in Ukraine and Russia, like whatever. So obviously there is going to be a shortage of uranium, so that's where I'm going to invest. It's kind of common sense in a way.
And with the thought with steel, is it a function of what's going on in Ukraine and Gaza? Is it macro, or what's driving that investment thesis?
Well, those places would have to be rebuilt for sure, especially with the construction and everything else that's been going on after the pandemic. My dad's in the construction business in Bulgaria. He's a developer there. So I know that like steel just keeps increasing every day and every day. And, he used to get his steel from Iran, but now there are sanctions. So he has to go somewhere else, and he goes somewhere else and he pays more. But then that other place gets it from Iran for like the cheaper price. So like, it's just like learning how like everything works.
How are you buying steel? You're buying futures, you're buying steel company stock?
I'm just buying ETFs.
You're buying on like a Robinhood type app. You're buying ETFs.
Yes, I use Robinhood.
So got it. So ETFs where the underlying is just steel manufacturers or steel.
Yes. And then I have started recently investing into nuclear companies as well, because that's like the trend that's going on. So I don't think it's hard. I think you just have to be a little bit aware and do the work and be able to like do the work.
But you were doing this post 2020, I assume, right?
It's funny because during the pandemic, I was like 2020, peak 2020, I was a sophomore in college. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and invest. I had no idea what to do, but I was just so confident because I was a finance major. Keep in mind, I haven't taken my finance classes at that time yet either. So I go and I start investing. I made a really good call because I bought airline options and I made a lot of money. But then after that, my confidence was just over the roof. And then I went and I bought all of the stocks that I shouldn't buy. Like Peloton was one of them. Literally every stock you can think of that was at its peak during 2020 and you shouldn't have bought, I bought it because I thought I knew better than everybody else. So I lost a lot of money there. And then I stopped trading for quite some time. And then I started getting into trading again once I got rid of my licenses.
Welcome to my life. I've had periods where I think I have the Midas touch. In 2008, invested heavily in Apple, sold it way too soon. I wasn't greedy enough.
When did you sell it?
I think like 2009. I made 40% on my money, 50% on my money, and I sold too soon. So I've had periods where I thought I understood it. I understood what I believed I understood trends, which is where John's question comes in about the confidence. And I mean this sincerely. I only hope that life reinforces your confidence and that it continues to build. But some of the upside of having age is perspective. Doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean I'm wrong. So in between your LLC and politics, what can we expect from you in the next 12 to 24 months? What can we expect from you in your mind over the next 12 to 24 months?
I hope I'll be getting a step closer to politics. I don't know in what way or how, but that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I stopped planning my life like by the exact, because when I did that, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to be. So now I'm like, okay, the universe is mine. Like whatever happens, like happens. If I don't like it at the moment, it's going to make sense later on. So really like my next milestone is politics. So that's kind of where I hope to be next in the next 12 to 24 months. If I'm not there, then I'll just keep working towards there. And yeah.
Well, you have a lot to be proud of. More importantly, not your career, but you as a person.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing earlier about the hypnotherapy, and hopefully what I shared with you might add to your perspective.
I think so too, because now I don't really need to see her every week like I used to at the beginning, because now I process things on my own. And, maybe I see her like once every 6 weeks just to like keep myself in check, because sometimes I can get a little bit far from me, like for myself.
My experience for me is I've backslid at times. Every time I think staying at the peak while it's optimal, staying there every day is not realistic. Things will challenge our sense of self and our perspective on where we fit in, whatever dynamic we're involved in. So I'll have a period for a couple months, couple years, and I'm dealing with things that yet again I are not sure why. So I'm going back to the drawing board, and I'm 58.
That's great though. And that's what I think it is. I'm like, okay, like if you have a bad day, that's fine, because like you have tomorrow, and you're not supposed to have good days every day. Like it's just
great. And that makes a sweet look to Socrates. I think it was Socrates, where you can't enjoy pleasure if you haven't experienced pain.
Exactly.
So,
And like, it's normal to have pain. It's life.
it is, and it's remembering all the wonderful things you have, and the love that you feel in the relationships that matter to us. When we're going through those tough times, even when we're pitying ourselves and feeling bad for ourselves or beating ourselves up. I mean, I know you beat yourself up because it's human, but I'm pretty much the king of it. So in my mind, I think it's as important sharing that journey publicly as it is also sharing the journey of our career paths and our perspective on the world. And I agree with you, there should be no war. And in my thesis, if one country wages war against another, hopefully the supermajority of other countries should literally go in and just say, if you do that, we're going to go into your country and we're going to destroy you, we're going to control you. So it's a very strict process is where I'm hoping the world will get to, where we have zero tolerance for violence.
I agree. I hope we can get there one day, and I hope it's soon.
I hope it's soon too. But the more of us that communicate, the more likely it is. And if you want, follow me on LinkedIn. I post a lot about what's going on with Gaza and Israel and some broader subjects. And I have many Persian friends. So I know from before the fall of the Shah, it was one of the few countries where women had identical rights, as far as I understand, to men.
Yeah, it was like the capital of everything. It was capital of fashion. It was capital of absolutely everything. I look at photos and I'm like, wow.
And it is amazing how a group of people can come in and take control of a country. But look at what's going on with Putin in Russia. It's the world can be fixed. I believe in it too. So I really appreciated meeting you. I really appreciated getting to know you. And I only hope to have the opportunity to continue a dialogue with you in the future.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me.